So today I'm going to show you how to create salt dough, which is like clay or Play-Doh, and it's a substitute that you can just make at home with 3 simple ingredients. All you need is flour, salt, and some water. You want something to work on top of because it is a little messy, so maybe some newspaper. Right now I'm using some wax freezer paper. You could put down some cardboard, whatever you can work on top of that you don't mind getting messed up instead of working on the table, because it could stick to the table. You're going to want some measuring cups and a bowl to mix it with. You can use a little spatula. I'm going to be using a popsicle stick to mix it up. And the first thing you're going to do is measure out about 1/4 a cup of water. So I'm going to take my measuring cup. I'm going to measure 1/4 cup of water. Okay, and you might need more depending on how much flour you add, and if it's too sticky, you might have to add more flour or less water. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. The next step is to measure out 1/4 a cup of salt. So the same amount of salt as water. And salt and flour have 2 different textures. Salt is very grainy and hard, and the flour is very soft and fluffy. So you'll notice that it will be very soft. So I'm going to take the flour, scoop some out into my measuring cup, and I'm going to measure 1/2 a cup of flour. So it's double the amount of salt and water. So I'm going to do 1/2 a cup. And if it's not exact, that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to pour that into the bowl, and I'm going to start to stir it up. Now, once it's all in one piece, you can take it and knead it with your hands. Kneading is almost like how a pizza maker or baker would knead dough. So since we are pretty much making dough, we're going to be able to do that in just a second. Okay, so you can stir most of it, and then once it's kind of chunky like this, you'll want to start to use your hands. And this is where you're going to squish it together until it's one solid piece. Now, if it gets too sticky towards the end, that means you might need to add some more flour. And you can also cover your hands in a little bit of flour if it starts to stick to your hands. That way you can really take it, pick it up, and squish the 3 ingredients together. It's okay if there's some left over in the ball. You really just want a nice ball of clay. And I like to pack it like a snowball. Smush them together. Now, if it's too dry, you might need to add a little bit of water. Now, in the recipe, I said you could also add color. You can wait till it dries and then paint it. Or if you have food coloring or watercolors, you can actually add color to your pieces. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to tear it apart into about 3 equal sizes. And if you wish to add color, you can also add paint. You might want to wear gloves. press a texture into it. You could press your hand into it. You could even press your pet's paw prints into it and make it as like a Christmas ornament. So think about how you want to do it. Maybe you want to leave it the shape of a circle. You might have a lid or something you could trace to cut it out as a circle. Like if I was to take this jar and put it down, I could either press and kind of spin it, or I can take something a little sharper to go around the edge like a pencil, or a plastic knife to cut it into the shape that I want. And I'm going to make it a little flatter and make sure I can pick it up so it's not stuck to the wax paper. And that's when you can put a little bit more flour down if you need to. It starts to get too sticky. And I kind of like the tie-dye effect of it. I don't really want it to be a solid color, so I'm going to leave it like that. And this is where you can take other things like lace is one of my favorite things to press into clay to make a texture. So you could press in lace and then pull it off, and now it's got that bumpy texture. If you have doilies or anything like that, you could press it in. And if you have cookie cutters, you could even use those to cut out some shapes. Now, if you want to draw your own shape and then cut it out, that is perfectly fine too. I really like to use these wooden skewers, like if you were to make kebabs, to draw a shape and cut it out. So red and white kind of reminds me of a candy cane. So maybe I take it and I kind of sketch a shape of a candy cane, and then I cut it. Now, it's a little harder to cut. You might have to roll it into the shape that you want after. A plastic knife would probably work a little better than this. Salt dough is not as sturdy as real clay, you might notice, but that is okay. You can still do a lot of the same things. So if I had a little bit of white left over, I could add some stripes on it. Now, to add pieces of clay, you can either just kind of stick it on, or the salt dough. You can wet it. I like to keep a little extra cup of water around so I can wet pieces of clay to stick them on together. And then once you're finished, you can let it dry. I like to let it air dry for about 24 hours, or you can bake it for 1 hour at 250 degrees. Make sure to get your parents to help you. Do not turn on the oven by yourself. Please do not cook. The best way, I think, is to air dry. But if you're in a hurry, you can use the oven. Just make sure you have your parents' permission first. And here is my candy cane. Now, the best way to cut a hole into it is to have a straw, a plastic straw. And you can just kind of poke a hole. Right now, I do not have a plastic straw hanging around, so I'm going to take my skewer, kind of poke a hole through it. You could take a toothpick to do this too, and make a little opening so I can later, once that's dry, tie some string on to hang it. So I might do that here. Maybe I write your name. You could write the date, like 2020, to remember this year. Maybe you write a fun little quote or draw a picture. You could even wait for it to dry and then paint a picture on it, since these are all flat objects. Now let's say you want to make something 3D or sculptural. Well, with salt dough, it's a little hard to do that. You can, if you let it get a little drier. Like let's say I wanted to make like a 3D heart. I can shape it into one and make it stand up. But what I really like to do is attach it to cardboard. So fun things about clay or the salt dough is if you wet the back of it and wet where it's attaching, it will actually stick to the cardboard. So there's going to be a lot more videos you can choose from One of my favorite art teachers, Cassie Stevens, who explains how to attach pieces to the cardboard, and she's got a lot of really fun projects. Like there's a garden one, there's a dinosaur fossil one, there's an outer space one. Like I said earlier, maybe you make a color wheel. You could take these pieces of clay and lay them out like in a circle to then mix together. So you could take like the red, you could take the blue, and squish those two together until it makes, what color do you think it's gonna make? It should make purple. And if it doesn't, you can always add more of one color in. Like right now it's looking really blue, so I might have to add a little more red in there. Don't have my gloves on now, but let's squish it together. Might need some more flour in a second. And we already made green earlier on accident. That's okay, it was a little happy accident. And then the only color we would have left would be orange. Which two colors make orange? Red and yellow. So let's say you wanted to attach, now it's starting to turn purple. Let's say you wanted to attach the pieces to the cardboard. You can take some of that water, wet the cardboard, and then just stick it on. And once it dries, you're gonna notice that it's gonna just stay there, which is pretty cool. So you can make a sculptural relief project of any kind of picture you want. Maybe you make some flowers. And shape it kind of like a tulip right there. And then make sure to wet the back of it so it will stick. This is something called a coil when you roll it in your hands. So you can make long pieces of clay. Maybe I have a stem and a leaf. So you can get as creative as you want with this project. Make sure to clean up after yourself. And if you wanted to keep this for later, remember you can always put it in a little plastic bag and work on some of it later. Just make sure to seal it up. And good luck.